Hi, this is the host. Today's question is, what do you think? Was there a conspiracy of hearts that brought them together and sealed their fate, or did they each follow their own selfish desires? Let's analyze the case of Andrew Cunanan and his possible accomplices in the Jeffrey Trail murders. First of all, I'm not convinced that Andrew Cunanan acted alone in killing Jeffrey Trail. There are just too many elements that don't add up. And while we have evidence of how he got to Minneapolis and had access to a gun, there are still unanswered questions regarding how he met Trail and how he knew about his boat and his house and where he got the money for the plane tickets. And I've heard no one address this. Why did Trail let him in his house? He must have been aware that Cunanan was a serial killer, so why did he let him in his home? It just doesn't make any sense. Even if he didn't know, why would he bring a serial killer into his home? I mean, if he suspected Cunanan was a serial killer, even if he didn't know for sure, he must have thought, I'm not letting this guy in my house. So something must have set off alarm bells in Jeffrey Trail's mind, but we don't know what that was. This brings me to my theory of a conspiracy of hearts. Did Jeffrey Trail know who Cunanan really was? Did he let Cunanan in because he wanted to die? Or did someone convince him that this man was not a serial killer? This guy that Trail ended up being murdered by? So, who could have put these two together? Well, Peter Brack was a friend of both men, a friend of Trail's from college and a former romantic interest. Brash has never denied having had a sexual relationship with Cunanan, and although no one seems to talk about it, I think it's weird that Brash kept in touch with someone he knew was a serial killer. I mean, I get it. If you're gay and you meet a guy at a bar and you sleep with him, you may not think he's a serial killer and you may not think you'll hear from him again. But once he's arrested and you learn who he is, wouldn't it be pretty much that, okay, I'm done, I'm out, I'm never going to contact this guy again? And yet Bratt kept in touch with Cunanan, who tried to get Bratt to go to Chicago to see him after he killed Lee Miglin. So I think there's some stuff we're not being told about the relationship between Peter Brash and Andrew Cunanan. Then there's Dennis LeMaster. In 2018, a true crime podcast called The Trail Went Cold interviewed LeMaster, who claimed that he had an affair with Cunanan in 1996 and that they had discussed killing Trail. Now, I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched to me. On the one hand, I'm like, no, why would anyone admit to that? On the other hand, why would they admit to sleeping with Andrew Cunanan, the serial killer, if they didn't have anything to hide? You know, if they were innocent, why would they say, yeah, I slept with him and I talked about killing somebody I knew he was going to kill? And yet Lester Masters claims he begged Cunanan not to hurt Trail. So that sounds believable. And when Lester Masters' husband found Cunanan in his pool in the early morning hours before Cunanan left for the Chicago trip, he assumed they were lovers. So they definitely had a relationship. And I'm not saying that Jeffrey Trail was murdered because of a conspiracy of hearts. I'm just saying there are so many holes in the timeline and in the narrative that we've been given that it's difficult for me to believe that only one person was involved in his murder. And perhaps this conspiracy of hearts involved Cunanan and Prache, or Cunanan and LeMaster, or Trail, somehow, some way. I just don't know. But I do think that Trail had something to do with his own demise. If you ask me, this wasn't a random murder. I also think that Cunanan had previous beefs with some of the people he killed. This reminds me of a comment made by a viewer who said, what if Cunanan was the one that killed Dr. Schubert? The police immediately jumped to the conclusion that it was a homophobic murder, which I highly doubt. The motive made no sense. To rob a gay doctor of his medication and leave his lover and kids fatherless without a shred of evidence that the murderer was gay or trans, or that he would have known that Schubert was gay or trans, that doesn't make any sense. To me, it looks like a hit. And if it was a hit, who ordered it? Was it a client who was mad at Schubert? Was it someone close to him, someone in his life that wanted him dead? And who could benefit from his death? Could be someone in his family, could be someone he worked with, could be a colleague. Who knows? But I don't think it was homophobic or transphobic. I agree. So whether or not there was a conspiracy of hearts, I think that there was a conspiracy of some kind that led to Dr. Schubert's death. And if you look at the people in Cunanan's life, There was Peter Brosh. He could have had a beef with the doctor. There was Dennis LeMaster. He could have had a beef with the doctor. David Madsen, his ex-boyfriend, could have had a beef with the doctor. And even Jeffrey Trail could have had a beef with the doctor. We don't know. We just don't have enough information to rule any of these scenarios out. Jeffrey Trail's best friend, Paul Andreotti, committed suicide, but not before writing a letter to Trail saying that he couldn't live with the guilt he carried for him anymore. And in this letter, Paul said that he had seen Andrew Cunanan on Jeffrey Trail's answering machine. So maybe Paul knew more than he was letting on. Maybe he knew about Cunanan's dark side, but he didn't tell his best friend. Or maybe Paul was the one who set them up. Maybe Paul knew that Cunanan was a serial killer, but he wanted Jeffrey Trail to die and he thought that he was going to heaven anyway, so it didn't matter. Or maybe Paul was trying to protect Trail and he set them up to take the fall for whatever he did to Trail. I don't know. I don't know what happened here. I can't answer these questions. But I do know that I feel very uncomfortable with the version of events that we've been given. I think there's more going on here than meets the eye. And I'm not the only one. Several people wrote to me with similar feelings. One said, "I completely agree with your thoughts. There are too many unanswered questions. Cunanan was a narcissist, and I believe he lured Trail with promises of fame, fortune, and adoration, killed him when he felt threatened, and then fled. My gut tells me that there were others involved, but I can't imagine who they could be. I feel the same way. There are too many unanswered questions for this to have been a solo job. Trail was a wealthy, influential man. I don't think Cunanan could have afforded the plane ticket without help. And I don't think Cunanan could have gotten on the plane without knowing that it belonged to Trail. Cunanan was obsessed with wealth and status and wanted to show off his new trophy. Trail was also very well connected and influential. I don't think he would have let a stranger onto his plane without checking him out first." Another said, "I think there was a conspiracy of hearts, for sure. I think the first murder, Dr. Fisher, was simply a robbery gone wrong. He just killed indiscriminately to get money. After that, he started targeting gay millionaires and celebrities because he wanted the lifestyle, the expensive clothes, etc. He needed someone to introduce him to those worlds. Enter Trail, who thought he was a wonderful, charming young man. I believe Trail introduced him to all his friends like Versace and Madsen. Cunanan killed Trail because he thought Trail was going to expose him. Think of it this way. Why else would he have gone to Trail's house in Minnesota? Just to say goodbye? No. He had already said he was leaving town. He would have killed him on the boat, not on the dock. He would have killed him when he had a chance, but he didn't. So he came to his house to kill him. Then he went to the Versace mansion. Why? Because he had killed Cunanan's two favorite people, David Madsen and Jeffrey Trail. Cunanan was a narcissist, and he knew Versace and Madonna were close to Trail. So he wanted to rub it in their faces that he had killed Trail, and he was proud of it. He wanted them to see him wearing Trail's clothes. He was showing off. It was like a trophy. It was personal. He wasn't just robbing Versace. He was sending a message to Trail's friends. Versace gave him the money and jewels, and he left. I think that's exactly what happened. And I want to thank everybody who subscribed, who liked, who commented, who shared, who sent me messages, and who emailed me. Your support means everything to me, and I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.